When you compress your eating into one deliberate window, a protocol often called OMAD, 1 meal a day, you are not starving. You're pulling a lever most modern humans have never even seen. And here's the wild part. Your body was built for this lever. It's not a hack. It's a return to a setting that existed long before snacks, vending machines, and breakfast all day. Picture a warehouse where delivery trucks arrive every few hours. The manager is panicking. Forklifts can't move. Boxes pile up until they block the exits, and the roof keeps leaking because nobody has a spare minute to climb up and repair it. The system isn't bad, it's just overwhelmed. Too much input, not enough recovery. That's not just poetry. That's your physiology on constant eating. Now picture what happens the moment you finally lock the doors and stop the trucks. For the first time in years, the cleaning crew steps out with brooms, welders, and a checklist. They don't punish the warehouse, they restore it. And if you've ever felt like your energy is scattered, your appetite is loud, and your cravings are steering the wheel, this is why. Today, we're looking strictly at the biology of what happens inside you when you stop eating, hour by hour, so you can understand why waiting for that one meal may be one of the most powerful decisions you make for your health. Let's start the clock. Hours 0 to 4. The clock starts the moment you put down your fork after your last meal. For these first few hours, you feel full. Your system is flooded with usable energy. Your stomach is working like a chemical blender, breaking proteins into amino acids, splitting carbohydrates into glucose, and packaging fats into tiny delivery particles. All of this enters your bloodstream, and your pancreas responds by releasing insulin. Insulin is the main player here. Think of insulin like a one-way gate. It's the store it signal. It's your body saying, we have incoming fuel, put it somewhere safe. When insulin is high, energy can move into cells, but energy cannot easily come back out. As long as insulin is circulating, your fat cells are locked vaults. In this phase, you are not burning fat in any meaningful way. Your body is prioritizing what's available right now, the fuel floating in your blood. It's like running your house from the electricity coming directly from the grid, not from your backup generator. And if your meals are high in sugar or refined carbs, this phase can feel like a warm blanket, followed later by a crash. If there's extra fuel, and in a modern diet there's usually extra, insulin takes that overflow and stores it. It packs sugar into your liver and muscles as glycogen. Think of glycogen as your wallet, quick cash, easy to spend, but not endless. You feel normal here. You might even feel calm and sleepy, but nothing special has flipped yet. This is the fed state, and it's familiar. It's also the state most people never leave because they restart the clock every few hours without realizing it. Hours 4 to 12. Now we enter the zone where most people quit. Around hour 6, 7, or 8, the big wave of meal energy is fading. Blood sugar settles back toward baseline. The warehouse gets quiet. The insulin manager starts to clock out. And this is when your brain sends a message. The easy cash in the wallet is running low. This is where ghrelin, the hunger hormone, tends to surge. You feel the stomach rumble. You may get edgy, restless, or a little foggy. This moment is where people confuse hunger with danger. They think, I'm shaky, I need food. But you are not starving. You are experiencing a fuel transition. You're like a car that has only ever used premium gasoline, and suddenly it's being asked to run on the backup system. It sputters, it complains. That doesn't mean the engine is dying. It means the engine is adapting. And here's the truth nobody tells you. Hunger comes in waves. It rises, peaks, and often fades, whether you eat or not. If you can ride the wave, your body learns. If you push through, a shift begins. Your liver realizes no new delivery trucks are coming, so it opens the glycogen wallet. It starts breaking down sugar to keep your blood glucose stable. Your brain still gets what it needs. Your red blood cells still get what they need. You're not losing muscle in a few hours. You're not eating yourself. You're using stored fuel exactly as designed, like spending cash you already saved. And the more often you practice this, the less dramatic it feels. The system stops panicking. Around 12 hours. At this point, glycogen, the easy cash, starts dropping toward critical levels, depending on your activity and meal size. Now your body faces a choice: shut down or unlock a deeper reserve. And because you're a survival machine built to go long stretches without food, your body unlocks the vault. This is the moment your biology proved it wasn't fragile, it was just untrained. Insulin falls to a lower baseline. This matters because insulin is not just a storage hormone, it's a permission signal. With insulin out of the way, a key enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase becomes more active. That enzyme helps unlock fat cells and release fatty acids into the bloodstream. For the first time in maybe days or weeks for some people, your metabolism begins to pull meaningful energy from stored body fat. This is why OMAD often works when other diets feel like suffering. You finally access the fuel you already carry. You are no longer running on the bagel you ate yesterday. You are running on you. Hours 14 to 16, fuel change phase. Somewhere between hour 14 and 16, many people notice the fast feels different. Hunger often quiets down. The edgy cravings soften. Why? Because your fuel supply stops bouncing. When you rely on constant meals, your energy becomes a roller coaster: spike, crash, snack, repeat. But when you rely on body fat, energy becomes a steadier line. Your body fat is not a tiny tank, it's a massive battery. Even if you're lean, you're carrying days of fuel, and that steadiness shows up as calmer mood, fewer cravings, and a weird sense of control you forgot you could have. As fat breaks down, your liver converts some fatty acids into ketones. This is crucial for the brain. The brain can't burn fat directly, but it can burn ketones. And it turns out many brains love them. Ketones are a kind of cleaner fuel. Glucose burning can create more metabolic smoke, what we call oxidative stress, especially in a system that's constantly overfed. Ketones tend to produce strong energy with less chaos. You're not becoming superhuman, you're just removing the constant fuel turbulence. This is why around 16 hours, people report the lift. The brain fog thins, focus sharpens, mood steadies. You don't feel dragged, you feel alert. That makes evolutionary sense. If a hungry human became sleepy and dull, they wouldn't find food. They would fail. Hunger doesn't only make you weak. In the right context, it makes you sharp. It turns you into a hunter. And yes, this is also where people realize they were never addicted to food. They were addicted to the cycle. Hours 18 to 24. The main event begins. This is where many researchers obsess over the timeline: autophagy. Remember our warehouse, the one that was too busy to clean? Now it's been quiet enough for the real cleaning crew to clock in. The manager looks around and realizes the machine still needs parts, but no new deliveries are coming. So he issues an order: salvage what's broken. No sentiment, no nostalgia, just efficiency. The crew scans the warehouse for rusty pipes, damaged shelving, and junk that's taking up space. They break it down, melt it, and reuse the material to build stronger structures. In your body, cells begin targeting damaged proteins. They tag dysfunctional mitochondria, the tiny energy factories that aren't performing well. They identify misfolded proteins that, if left to accumulate, can contribute to age-related dysfunction. They can even capture certain unwanted intruders inside cells. Your body forms a membrane around this cellular junk, dissolves it, and recycles it into usable building blocks. This is autophagy. The word literally means self-eating, but that phrase scares people. What it really is, self-recycling. It's your internal cleanup and renovation program. When you eat constantly, this program stays turned down. The cleaning crew never gets a full shift.
By fasting long enough, you give your body time to take out the trash. And once you understand that, fasting stops sounding like punishment and starts sounding like maintenance.
This is why skin can look clearer over time. This is why inflammation often cools down. This is why some people report old aches improving. You're reducing clutter and giving your system room to repair. It's not magic, it's housekeeping. Hours 20 to 22. Now the skeptics ask the same question. If my body is breaking things down, won't it eat my muscle? This is the most common myth, and it's backwards when you understand survival biology. Deep into a fast, your body releases counter-regulatory hormones designed to protect you. One of the big ones is human growth hormone, HGH. Research shows fasting can increase HGH significantly. HGH is not a fat loss magic spell, but it is strongly associated with preserving lean mass during energy scarcity. Think of it like a protective signal. Do not burn the machinery, burn the stored fuel. Your body is not going to dismantle the muscles it needs to hunt and function while you still have a shed full of wirewood, your body fat, right outside. It uses fat first. Muscle becomes valuable equipment, not emergency calories. And this combination, low insulin and higher protective hormones, is a metabolic state you rarely experience in a modern, always snacking lifestyle. It can create an environment where you preserve muscle while steadily stripping fat. That's why training plus fasting can be such a powerful pairing if you do it intelligently. Hour 23. Approaching the eating window. Now your body is primed. Your insulin sensitivity tends to improve. Think of your cells like a sponge. A sponge that's been soaked all day can't absorb more water. That's a constantly fed cell. But a dry sponge, a fasted cell, is ready to absorb what you give it. Your digestive system has had a long rest. Inflammation in the gut lining has had time to settle. Certain bacteria that thrive on constant sugar lose their advantage, while hardier beneficial species can persist. This is why what you eat now matters. Your body is listening. You are running largely on fat. Your brain is lit by ketones. Your cells have done maintenance. Your body is not weak, it's organized, it's efficient. Now the clock hits hour 23. It's time to eat. And this is where many people fail, because the system is so sensitive right now that what you eat matters more than usual. Think of it like clean lungs after fresh air. Don't immediately inhale smoke. You cannot treat this meal like a trophy for suffering. You must treat it like construction material. If you break a 23-hour fast with pizza and soda, you are flooding a finely tuned system with garbage. You spike glucose hard, insulin surges hard, and you crash, tired, bloated, brain-fogged, disappointed. That's not OMAD failing, that's the input being trash. You didn't earn junk, you earned an opportunity to rebuild. Here's the logic of a smart refeed. Step 1, protein. High-quality protein, eggs, salmon, chicken, steak, Greek yogurt, something dense in amino acids. After a long fast and cellular cleanup, your body wants building blocks. This is where repair happens. Step 2, fats. Add healthy fats like olive oil, avocado, nuts, or fatty fish. Since you're already in fat-burning mode, dietary fat supports that machinery and usually keeps the insulin response moderate. Step 3, micronutrients and volume. Since you're eating once, you can't rely on little snacks for minerals. You need real volume from vegetables, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, fermented foods like sauerkraut or kimchi. These deliver potassium, magnesium, and other micronutrients that help prevent cramps, fatigue, and headaches. When you eat nutrient-dense food this way, something surprising happens. You get full faster. Leptin and ghrelin, your fullness and hunger signals, start communicating like adults again. And for the first time, enough feels natural, not forced. You stop eating when you are nourished, not just when you are stuffed. The adaptation period.
Now, I'm going to be real with you. If you jump from 6 eating events a day straight to OMAD tomorrow, you'll probably feel awful. Your body needs time to build the machinery to burn fat smoothly. It takes time to upregulate enzymes. It takes time for the liver to get efficient at ketone production. This is metabolic flexibility, and most people are not flexible on day 1. So, if day 1 feels ugly, that doesn't automatically mean this is bad. It means you're in withdrawal from constant easy fuel and you're losing electrolytes. When insulin drops, your kidneys release water and sodium, so you must replace it. Salt is not the enemy here. It's often the fix. A pinch of salt in water during the fasting window can reduce headaches fast. Hydration plus sodium is the difference between this is impossible and, oh, I can do this. And don't be reckless. Ease in. Push breakfast back 2 hours, then 4, then skip it. Then compress the window gradually. Don't jump into the deep end with no training. Also, fasting is a stressor. For people with high baseline stress, poor sleep, thyroid issues, or certain medical conditions, long fasting windows can raise cortisol. So don't treat OMAD like religion. Treat it like a tool you can adjust, a tool you can pause, a tool you can use when your life supports it. This protocol is for healthy adults. Do not attempt it if you are pregnant, nursing, have a history of eating disorders, or take medication for diabetes or blood pressure without medical supervision. We live in a food environment hostile to human biology, designed to make you fear hunger. But hunger is not an emergency, it's a signal, one you can learn to control. Beyond weight loss and time saved, OMAD gives you freedom. You stop being a slave to blood sugar swings and return to an older rhythm: hunt, feast, rest. You aren't starving, you are adapting. You are building the ability to run on your own fuel again. And once you feel that freedom, it's hard to unfeel it. If you try this, tell me below. Did you hit the wall around 12, or did you feel the lift at 16? I'll see you in the next video.